But your picture on my wall, it reminds me that it's not so bad, it's not so bad. My tea's gone cold, I'm wondering why. Got out of bed at all. The morning rain clouds up my window, and I can't see it all. And even if I could, it would all be great. But your picture on my wall, it reminds me that it's not so bad. It's not so bad. My tea's gone cold, I'm wondering why. Got out of bed at all. The morning rain clouds up my window, and I can't see it all. And even if I could, it would all be great. But your picture on my wall, it reminds me that it's not so bad. It's not so bad.
In the summer of 2020, when the world was reeling from the murder of George Floyd, a former child star with a small but dedicated following was outed as a far-right bigot. A Pinterest account attributed to him by an unknown source showed the mind of a man obsessed with guns and doomsday planning, indifferent to the murder of Trayvon Martin and the struggle for justice for Black lives. He had shared memes expressing support for George Zimmerman, in opposition to the civil rights movement, and dismissing the identity of LGBTQ people like me. His fans, who had looked up to him for a squeaky clean image as a humanitarian who wrote songs about surviving mental illness, took to Instagram to demand an apology for the hurt they felt. Believing he had done nothing wrong, Zac confirmed that the account was his, doubled down, and refused to say that Black Lives Matter. As his loyal fans watched in horror as they were gaslit, blocked, and silenced, they formed a community to try to understand how this had happened and what it meant to experience such a betrayal in their decades-long parasocial love for a bright star. What did it mean when you had tattooed his poetry on your skin, depended on it to survive racism, homophobia, and oppression? How did a boy who had sung songs of hope that had saved lives become radicalized? In the summer of 2020, I was going through a personal struggle. I had finally reported my abusive mother to the police, was navigating chronic illness, and had begun testosterone therapy to physically transition to male. I was struggling to find my voice, figuratively and literally, and I found myself nostalgic for the first voice that had ever inspired me. Even though I hadn't called myself a fan for more than a decade, my pain over his actions was as real as my love for the music he'd made. How could the boy who taught me to sing hate me for my skin? How could the boy who'd given me the strength to survive my abuse think I was a degenerate pervert for being trans? What did I do to deserve this? If you were a teenager in 1997, Hanson is probably little more than an annoying punchline from the summer. A toxic joke you told way before you understood gender identity. The gimmick that made this pop trio ubiquitous on the airwaves is that the brothers, Isaac, 16, Taylor, 14, and Zac, 11, were some of the youngest stars to ever hit it big, recalling the popularity of such acts as the Jackson 5. But not unlike Jackson experienced throughout his career, the brothers Hanson quickly became the butt of a cruel joke about gender conformity, due in no small part to their golden hair and their high, melodic child voices.
Hey, you guys, here's one for you. Let's say none of us were married, all right? If you could have any woman in the world, who would it be? And what about you, Quagmire?
Taylor Hanson.
Taylor Hanson's a guy.
Oh, you guys are yanking me. Hey, let's put one over on old Quagmire.
No, he's actually a guy, Quagmire.
What? Well, this is insane. That's impossible. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't. Oh God. I got all these magazines. Oh God. Oh God.
But now I've sold all of my records and I'm no longer a fan because I found out Taylor Hanson was a man. I sold all of my records and I'm no longer a fan because I found out Taylor Hanson was a man. I sold all of my records and I'm no longer a fan because I found out Taylor Hanson was a man. I sold all of my records and I'm no longer a fan because I found out Taylor Hanson was a man.
Hey, Hanson and Rick, I'd like to get your personal feelings on what you think and feel when people say you sing and look like girls. Although you guys are truly talented and sexy, you are. And it says you are to sing for me. But can you answer that? That's from Ashley in Antigonish, Nova Scotia.
Well, personally, if we are girls, we are the ugliest girls. I find it hard to believe that I sound like a girl. Otherwise it would be a very butch girl.
Hello, I'm Hilga. How are you doing?
The fact that these were actual children didn't seem to matter. These boys were fair game for comedians and critics everywhere, and they had to field comments about their gender in nearly every interview or TV appearance. Zac, who was again 11, was frequently forced to make jokes about this. Never mind that their appearance wasn't even slightly unusual in 1997, with the heyday of grunge coming to an end and boys all over the country sporting similar Kurt Cobain-inspired hairstyles with no such scrutiny. Hanson were the last boys to do so in the public eye, so they bore the brunt of the hatred for it. As a trans adult, I can't help but feel frustrated for the injustice of forcing an 11-year-old boy to perform masculinity correctly on such a massive scale. While it's true that Zac is not trans or even gender non-conforming, it's also true that it must have been so toxic to grow under that scrutiny, with only his evangelical upbringing to navigate it. I'm sure that his parents loved him, but I'm also sure that they didn't have an understanding of gender variance and trans misogyny to share with him. And I don't doubt that it was very confusing to face that hate. I don't know if this is what led the boys straight into the welcoming arms of the far right, but I can imagine that the rigidity of their rhetoric is a great comfort when you have met violence for your failure to understand how to be a man as a little boy. It's a familiar story by now. The way the fascist rhetoric offers a space for insecurities about masculinity to be covered up, blamed on the other. Break down a boy's sense of self-worth, and that empty space is perfect to fill up with fascism. That's the first way to radicalize a boy. And although I'm not complicit in this behavior from society, I have deep sympathy for the pain it must have caused. These children deserved better, and I'm sorry that society didn't give it to them. Even as they face scrutiny for their performance of gender, their catchy, emotional songs and wholesome good looks won them the affections of millions of dedicated fans. And here is the second way to radicalize a boy, and it's the part that I'm unfortunately complicit with: the global sexualization of a child star.
Let me tell you about my own experience. I turned 12 on the set of my first film, The Professional, in which I played a young girl who befriends a hitman and hopes to avenge the murder of her family. The character is simultaneously discovering and developing her womanhood, her voice, and her desire. At that moment in my life, I too was discovering my own womanhood, my own desire, and my own voice. I was so excited at 13 when the film was released and my work and my art would have a human response. I excitedly opened my first fan mail to read a rape fantasy that a man had written me. A countdown was started on my local radio show to my 18th birthday, euphemistically the date that I would be legal to sleep with. Movie reviewers talked about my budding breasts in reviews. I understood very quickly, even as a 13-year-old, that if I were to express myself sexually, I would feel unsafe, and that men would feel entitled to discuss and objectify my body to my great discomfort. So I quickly adjusted my behavior. I rejected any role that even had a kissing scene and talked about that choice deliberately in interviews. I emphasized how bookish I was and how serious I was, and I cultivated an elegant way of dressing. I built a reputation for basically being prudish, conservative, nerdy, serious, in an attempt to feel that my body was safe and that my voice would be listened to. At 13 years old, the message from art culture was clear to me. I felt the need to cover my body and to inhibit my expression and my work in order to send my own message to the world that I'm someone worthy of safety and respect. The response to my expression, from small comments about my body to more threatening, deliberate statements, served to control my behavior through an environment of sexual terrorism.
While Portman has deserved the criticism she's received for her support of Roman Polanski, what she has chosen to share with us is still a powerful look into the effects of sexualizing child stars. Few would argue that what happened to Portman was fair, or that child stars deserve to be sexualized for daring to become famous. It could be tempting to imagine that as boys, they were exempt from this. But unfortunately, you would be wrong.
Dust Brothers?
Yeah, that was
pretty
incredible.
slick. Yeah, for sure. Oh, nice. What's my next question? I was into that noise that Zac was making. What other what other parts of your body can you fart with? Answer. What was that? Do you have girlfriends at home?
No girlfriends.
No girlfriends? That seems quite adamant. Have you been asked that before?
Yeah, actually quite a bit.
Many times.
Today? Have you done heaps of
Yes.
interviews today and everyone said, have you got girlfriends?
No.
And that might.
Do you reckon? Or is it the hair colour? I was wondering how you had such beautiful sensual hair. Do you have a hair care sponsorship? Good, never mind.
We're talking about care now.
I've got it's gone massively successful. Are you cold yet?
Yeah.
Are you cold? Why do we have to stand in a pool to do this interview? Whose idea was this?
You were in the pool.
When did you start singing?
We did our first performance about 6 years ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
As you three?
Yeah, he was
You're weird.
And who wrote the song?
It's great having a band on that's still ticklish.
Come strangle me again. There you go. No, another strangler. No, that's just like we're friends now. We're friends now. The Molson Amphitheater tomorrow.
Last night at like 2 in the morning, there were like 500 girls outside our hotel. It's kind of like,
And you said,
Wow.
okay, let's go. Let's come to my bedroom.
said, go home, get some sleep, see you tomorrow.
Are you just intersex? Yeah, I believe so.
I think I'll keep that to myself, and like
yeah?
you and your little perverted mind, stay where it is.
Oh, yeah? To Argentina.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And you know, there are thousands of girls in a frenzy out there for you.
Yes,
So take a chance of that.
Yeah, yeah.
In my name, please.
Yeah.
I think Hanson's Middle of Nowhere should be on the list because they write their own music and they play their own instruments, and I think they deserve a lot more credit, and I think that they are sexy, and I want to lay down in the bed with them. Look out there! Somebody's getting a little sassy on the computer. That's what I'm saying. Okay. It's time to get the president.
No, if you guys were not so beautiful, I would not be able to like carry on with this. Here we go.
Me neither.
Ashton, you better behave because you're like the only one I could come onto without going to jail. Okay. All right.
I think she's trying to tell you something. After the show,
Paula, let's hear the choice.
Okay.
cut to it quickly. It's like, speed it up, speed
This
it.
was number one, 30. Okay, this was number one for 31 weeks in a row.
Pet him.
It was a phenomenal. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, we gotta move things up.
31 weeks, top 10. I mean, no, number one album. I'm sorry, they're so gorgeous.
What
I
is
can't
it,
speak.
Paula?
I
What
can't
is
look at them and I'm like, oh.
Okay.
Okay. Rumors, Fleetwood Mac.
Without a child's rose-colored glasses, the truth is obvious. This is abuse. Full stop. Objectively speaking, this is footage of a child being sexually harassed by adults. It doesn't matter if it didn't go further than this. It doesn't matter if the fame seemed worth it, because children cannot consent to sexual harassment. If his brothers were too young for this objectification as teenagers, what happened to Zac is horrifying. And even just this, if he had been protected from anything else, he should not have been objectified like this as a child. Interviewers shouldn't have flirted with him, not even as a joke. He shouldn't have sat in a stranger's lap. Whether Zac Hanson, the man, has ever considered what happened to him then, it's objectively not okay for a child to be subjected to any sexualized behavior by adults. I would even argue that unlike Natalie Portman, Zac Hanson was subjected to sexualized behavior that people would feel comfortable joking about because of the old toxic wisdom that boys can't be victims. But of course they can. Of course, they are every day. Of course, they struggle under the weight of toxic expectations of masculinity, making it harder to heal. I wish this was all. I wish I didn't have more to tell. But this is about how to radicalize a boy, and that means being honest about how I'm complicit. I'm not saying it's my fault. As one single brown trans kid from California, who only met him and shook his hand before a show a handful of times, I'm saying that because of people like me, Zac and his brothers were exposed to sex in far more damaging ways. It was natural at that age, to some extent. Teenagers swooning over celebrity crushes, it's pretty normal as experiences go. And maybe it would have been fine if we kids had been alone to squeal over our idols, but we weren't. While much of it is lost to time, the truth is that there were grown men and women with us, pedophiles. They wrote stories that gleefully described their developing bodies, about the boys from Hanson having sex with men, women, and each other. I know this because I read them, all by myself, on the computer in my living room when my family was asleep. I learned about gay sex for the first time from dirty, incestuous stories written by pedophiles, and other kids who'd been groomed by those pedophiles. This is the lens under which I realized I was gay. And no, that wasn't an okay thing to happen to me. But I didn't know that when I was 12. Maybe most kids would have. But at 12, I'd already experienced sexual assault. And that, coupled with the oppressive, homeschooled, sheltered, evangelical childhood I had, left me wide open to be exploited. And I was, many times. It took me longer than I care to admit to realize that this dynamic was abusive. I think I was 26. I wish I could say at least that this stayed with us fans. I wish I knew that his internet was monitored, that his fan letters were carefully curated to exclude violent sexual fantasies from abusive adults like the one that Natalie Portman opened. But I honestly don't think so. I know that Slash Fiction was banned from their fan club forum when I was a kid. I know that fans shouted at them to kiss each other at multiple concerts I personally attended. I know he knew at 17, at Anaheim's House of Blues, when he leaned over to whisper in his brother's ear on stage, and the girls in the audience started whistling. I saw him jump away from his brother like he'd been burned, saw the aggravation on his face as he hid behind his drums for the rest of the show. He didn't need words at that young age to understand the finer details of what those fans were thinking. It's hard for me to know what to do with that knowledge now. I was a victim. And that's something that I'll be dealing with for the rest of my life. But I was also a cog in a sick machine that dehumanized 3 boys in ways that no child should ever face. And for that, I'm truly sorry. Because even if that's all, even if Zac was never physically assaulted, which of course I'm not qualified to guess at, this alone is enough to tear out the hope of a child. I know it was done to me. What's it like to be a religious, homeschooled, sheltered child who just wants to make music and for his talents is rewarded with sexual exploitation? For all our similarities, I don't know what that's like. I don't know how conscious the responsible adults in his life were. I don't know if he was protected. I don't know how they helped him deal with the fallout. What I do know is how that boy wrote songs.
We sit in time-honored traditions made, never wondering where or when the sickle may come. If we don't seek our knowledge to be greater men, when the rain starts falling, Gonna drown before we get our feet wet.
Song after song, volumes of passionately sung tales of trauma, survival, and pain. Like so many kids, I memorized every line. I wrote them on my skin. I daydreamed that he wrote them for me, and I believed that I knew him. This fed right back into the loop of parasocial obsession, throwing me into deeper commitment to the band, and finding me in online circles, devouring fan fiction and talking to those writers. I'm no longer ashamed to say that the woman who groomed me in part used Zac to do it. She wrote me stories and eroded the lines, and before I knew it, I was lying in bed with her, in her arms, with no idea how much danger I was in. The things I was brainwashed to believe, I still fight to unlearn every day. The truth is, the way to radicalize a boy is the same way you groom a child. If you become a heart to follow for a lonely, lost kid, you can mold them to do anything. You can teach them to fuck, or to shoot a gun, or hate black people. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's colonizing a brain with rhetoric before it even has a chance to know itself. I know, because I could spit convincing rhetoric about lowering age of consent laws by the time I was 16. And I'm sure that shame of mine lives somewhere on the internet. And in the end, Zac and I were the same in that we were two children who were exploited by an industry that didn't care about either of us. Two sides of the same coin for a faceless record executive who made money off our nightmares. We deserved better, both of us. We deserve justice still. And for both of us, that's easier said than done. I don't want you to get it twisted. This doesn't excuse him for being objectively racist. Because just like me, he's a man now. And he's making a choice. Just like brainwashing doesn't end at 18, and I made mistakes and treated people wrong from my own warped perspective well into adulthood. This is an explanation, not an excuse. He has hurt people with his hateful rhetoric, and they deserve justice too. He is wrong. No matter how painful your life has been, at some point, you have to choose whether or not you're going to let it rule you. As he sang to me in my bedroom as a teenager, everyone must make a choice. But in thinking about the pain it's caused me to lose such a vital part of my childhood, it's occurred to me so many ways that he and I are different men. I escaped the rhetoric I was raised under precisely because I'm a brown queer man, and I need justice in a way that he doesn't. This world isn't designed for my survival. So social justice is a means of staying alive, of reaching out to others who share my pain and offer them the hand I've needed to get through the very real threats we faced. To fight so that things are better, safer for those behind me, like Rosa Parks did, like Harvey Milk did. Social justice is love made public, and I can't help but commit myself to it. But I think it would be a lot harder to see that if you're a straight, cisgender, rich white man whose pain was perpetuated by people unlike you. If you can't get or even articulate how you deserve justice and no one is listening, then maybe the only safety is the family you've made, people with skin and eyes and sexualities like yours who shared that pain with you as you lived it. So I guess that the reason I'm speaking out about this is to tell you that I hear you, Zac. That Black lives matter precisely because all lives do, because there should be justice for everyone, but there isn't. And it's not fair. So we fight for those who need it most now. And if all of those lives matter, then so do you. Just because you're lost in fear now doesn't mean you have to stay that way. You're still alive, so there's still hope for you. I find hope in your hate for me because you taught me to conquer it. I will stand for you and say aloud that I'm sorry you were sexualized as a child. I'll stand against the people who corrupted your innocent talent and created a monster for profit. But I'm angry. I'm angry that I've shaken your hand and told you that you saved my life. And you smiled while thinking that I am less worthy of survival and rights than you for the brown transgender body I was born in. I'm angry that I memorized your songs and went to your concerts and felt understood by you, because I don't think you're stupid. I think you do see the cracks in the rhetoric you're cloaked in. I think you do understand, and it's just easier to deny it because it benefits you more than getting angry. Well, I'm angry that this happened to me. I'm angry that this happened to you. So the question is, will you stand for me like I'm standing for you? Do you know why we've died? Do you know why I'd die? Hi everyone, I'm Ashton.
I'm Elle.
And we're Virtue Signal. I hope you enjoyed that. I appreciate you staying to watch. If you liked that, and if you're interested in watching us as we escape a lifetime of abuse and pitch a TV show to the entire world in time for Pride Month, I really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. You can also follow me on social media and watch virtuesignal.com for our big launch. Thank you so much. Bye.